this whole methodology of designing your day, designing your week, designing your month, and designing your life is a way to be ultimately successful, not only in business, but in your personal life.
Welcome to the Spear and Clover Podcast, the show about the art of crushing your goals and the discipline of loving your life while you do. I'm your host, Jason Skisik, the entrepreneurial evangelist, and each week I bring you the stories of visionaries who see the world as it could be and can't help but take action. If you're enjoying these episodes, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and review. This is the best way to stay in the loop when we drop new content. Of all the people I've met for the first time podcasting, Scott Rammage is one who I've found myself staying in touch with quite often. Perhaps it's because his podcast, Brotherhood of Fatherhood, hits on all sorts of things that I believe in. Or maybe it's because his company, VAs for Gyms, seems to be one of the very few companies capable of delivering a great experience working with skilled VAs. Honestly, though, I think it's just because Scott is a genuinely good man and he believes in things like staying connected and helping your friends. We could all use a Scott Rammage in our lives. Get ready to be introduced to my friend, and maybe yours now too, Scott Rammage. Oh, and as a side note, Scott has organized the big event, a truly epic immersive retreat in Montana for men, featuring guest speakers like Robb Wolf, Dr. Jason Piccolo, as well as rucking, shooting, and grappling training. Basically all the stuff that blows my hair back. Book your ticket to the big event at the link in the show notes. Now, let's get to the show. Scott, how are you?
Doing awesome. How are you, brother?
I'm doing really good, man. I recently had been a guest on your show, Brotherhood of Fatherhood, and I got to tell you, I know I've sent you some folks to talk to and connected people with you. I've been thinking about you a lot since our last conversation, so you really made an impact on me, and I think hearing your story today and getting to dig a little deeper is going to be a real treat for the audience. So thank you again for coming on the show, buddy.
Yeah, well, vice versa. I mean, we've already had a few conversations offline. It's been really epic. To the listener, if you like listening to Jason, I think we align a lot. So here we go, right?
Yeah, it's funny. I love when that happens, when it's like, oh, it's pretty obvious that like anybody that likes the type of stuff you're doing and the way you present it and who you're having on, it's pretty obvious that those folks would get something from me. Now, the Brotherhood of Fatherhood thing is super cool. And it's also something that is super new to me. I recently had our first daughter, Lucy. So I'm thinking a lot about fatherhood, but I don't have a whole lot of wisdom to share. And I do want to dig on that. But first, let's talk about VAs for gyms. That's something that also is a topic really close to my heart because I've tried with varying, moderately unsuccessful efforts to work with VAs in the past. And so I, like a lot of our listeners at home, and by the way, this is across any industries can be benefiting from this, would love to hear more about how you got involved in working with VAs and what that process has been like for you.
Well, that is really cool. That's a good question because it actually circles around Brotherhood of Fatherhood as well. So I was working in the fitness industry. I have for a long time. I sold my CrossFit gym in 2016 to relocate my family and didn't want to carry it on. Kind of now I was like, man, it was running so well. What was I thinking? But that becomes a headache. It can become a headache when it's distant. So I sold it, moved on, and been working in the fitness industry ever since. And I was working for Level Method, which is great brand, a great service for gyms. And I was their number one guy. I was their guy they brought in when they were brand new. I helped develop the operations, the customer onboarding. I did sales. Like I was just, in there in the weeds. And Nathan Holiday, the owner, is like, hey man, like you know what you need is you need a VA. I'm like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And he goes, but you won't be able to do it. And at that time, I'd started the Brotherhood of Fatherhood, which was a podcast and a group. And the group really quickly grew to like 2,000 men. And it's almost 4,000 now. And I'm like trying to manage all this stuff. And I'm like, I do need a VA. Man, what am I going to do? So I just started interviewing everybody I knew who had a VA, who had VAs and failed at it miserably. So I found all of like the strings of like what was successful and what was not. And it really came down to just a few things. Number one, they weren't really committed to the process and didn't really hire like a full-time person. That was a big key. You got to hire someone full-time. Otherwise, they're trying to make ends meet with like 40 different clients, right? Number two, they had no management skills. They had no personal operating system or business operating system, no project management skills. And so I'm like, man, I kick ass at that. Like, this is great. So I did all this research, joined a few online courses, and I hired my first VA. And like literally within a month, she was doing 40 hours a week of work for me.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh, this is insanely cool. She she was doing about 20 hours a week for my contract work with Level Method, doing all the reports and all that stuff that just took my time. It didn't need me. I need to be on the phone and on Zoom with our clients and our, just building the rapport and helping them build the systems inside of their gyms. And so she's doing about 20 hours a week of that. And then about the rest was podcast editing and social media management. I'm like, this is kick ass. I am like, the problem with me though, Jason, I've always done everything myself. And I would just want to solve problems. I just want to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did I do? I fell into Parkinson's law, which is basically work will fill all time you allow it to fill. So I'm still working 60 to 80 hours a week. Plus I'm leveraging this person for 40 hours a week. And so I hired another one and I started to learn from Nathan Holiday that I needed to give myself some time. And he had taught me how to do some of these personal operating systems, some of these time management skills and work blocking and all these things. And I was getting really good at it. He's like, you did so well. You filled all your time with more work. You're just basically like 8 people.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up having 3 full-time VAs, and I'm running multiple masterminds for gym owners at this time. And they're all over the world. And I'm like, you guys have got to get a VA. And I kept hearing the same thing. Dude, I've tried it. It sucks. Like it doesn't work. And after so many weeks of telling them like, I'm so excited, I'm getting all this stuff done, they finally came back and said, look, Scott, if it's so great, let us use yours.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no way. And my business partner at the time, and he still is my business partner, was like, no, those are our work machine, and kept going back and forth and back and forth. And finally I decided I was going to do it without telling my business partner, which is the only thing I've ever done and not been honest with him about. The guy came back, he used her for 1 week. He's like, oh my gosh. And he's still a client today. He's like, this is insane. This is so cool. And I'm like, I just solved the problem for a gym owner. Gym owners try and do everything themselves. And basically all small business owners. I've owned multiple kinds of businesses. And I went back to Josh. I said, hey, dude, like, I think we just solved a problem. I think we just found our own business, but I think we solved the problem for gym owners. And he was mentoring gym owners at that time. And so I laid it out to him. He's like, yeah, wow. And it was born and it grew like wildfire. And, we just perform all sorts of different services for gym owners, podcasters, chiropractors, physical therapists, coaches, nutritional coaches. It goes on and on. But for me, it's all just it's the ultimate time hack. It's allowed me to produce so much and have a life, which is so incredibly important for me. I mean, one of the main messages in the Brotherhood of Fatherhood is you need to be incredibly intentional with your time. And when I say intentional, I mean intentional action. That means don't just think about being with your family or spending time really dialing in with your kids. It means actually taking action on it, which seems to be a kind of a breaking point for men. They think they're being intentional, but they're not actually acting on it. So it's actually born from my need growing this Brotherhood of Fatherhood. Yeah, I mean, fast forward, we're 20 months into it and it's just still growing. And we have staff now. We're getting paid great, over 30 virtual professionals overseas in different countries, making a killing because the dollar's so strong in their country. So it's been phenomenal.
Man, that's unbelievable. First of all, just to hit the time management thing, I agree. And because I think both of us are lifestyle guys, I think we go about it a little bit different ways. But when I say lifestyle, I mean actually living it, right? I mean, not talking about it, not thinking about it, not planning for it in the future, but actually living it. And I know that it's not sexy when you're in your 20s to like schedule date nights and schedule time with your friends or family or schedule going to the gym. That's what I do. And those go on my calendar before the work stuff. And then the work stuff, of course, like you said, will fill whatever vessel I leave for it. But I have really, really benefited from that. That being said, let's get a little bit tactical. So if I'm a gym owner or really any small business owner and I'm just either I'm overwhelmed or I'm at this like cruising altitude where it's like, I'm good, but I can't do more. I can't really leave for a long time from the business. I can't take my hands off the wheel. What are the ways that you should think about beginning to think about delegating with a VA? Is it certain types of tasks? Is it how many hours a week are good? Like, how do you ramp up to kind of being on that highway with VAs in the organization?
Yeah, that's a great question because there is a lot of tactical things that really you need to do. And whether it's a VA or if it's someone inside of your building, it's your wife who wants to help with the business, whatever it is, or husband, whatever it is, you've got to be tactical. So number one is doing a ruthless audit. And so I do an audit every single day. Every day I have in my checklist, because I have a very organized system in which every thought that comes to my head, every business idea, every email, every text, everything goes into my system. It's organized and I attack it at specific times. At the end of the day and the beginning of each day, I have a little checklist that says, what did I do today that I did not need to do? And so then I go through, and that's just my cue. I go through my calendar. I'm like, okay, I did all these things. I go through my checklist of things that I completed. And I have a ruthless auditing system. I'm like, I did not need to send that email. Someone else could have done that. It's literally the same answer every time that email comes.
God,
or I did not.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh man. But we just do it.
That's one that gets me for sure.
We just do it. It's like it's 20 seconds. It takes 20 seconds. Well, here's the truth. The truth is, when an email comes in and you just have to do a rote reply, even if it's a copy and paste, you have now just task switched. And so our brains, there's no such thing as multitasking. I will fight anybody over it. Probably lose, but I'll fight with the science or the research behind it. There's no such thing. You actually have to switch tasks in your brain. Your brain has to switch speeds or gears. When every single time you do that, you lose up to 20% of your productivity. So even a 20-second task is costing you at least a minute. Because not only does it, that first thing that you switch, every time when you switch back, it's another 20% productivity loss. And so you just over and over and over again. And most people, this is insane if you really think about it, most people are operating about a 20% productivity level. If you do the hours, it's insane how much time you're losing. And so there's a lot of different tactics to take care of that. But the very first thing you got to do is look at everything that you're doing and just be like, why do I do that? If it doesn't require my eyeball to eyeball with somebody else, my actual voice or my physical cue, and it isn't inside of my working genius, I should not be doing it. And so that is literally how I do everything. Okay, I personally don't have to do it. Now my task is to get that out of my head and to somebody else. And I've developed systems for that. That's number one. Just do an audit and do it for like a couple of weeks. Be ruthless with yourself.
Yeah, I love doing like a time study or things like that are really, really
exactly
powerful. Go ahead.
Exactly. I mean, I'm even to the point like I'm not going to the UPS store. I'm not going to the post office. Like that's the next step is to calculate your earned hourly rate. How much money are you worth per hour? And like, here's the real trick to that. The less you work and the more money you produce, the higher your earned hourly rate is. So for me and my business partner, it's a game. It's a race. Like, hey, I'm only working 15 hours this week. My EHR is up to X amount per hour. And then everything I decide on what I'm going to do. Am I going to mow the lawn? Well, geez, I can pay somebody $20 an hour to do that. And my EHR is 10X that or 5X that, whatever it may be. Yeah. Unless I'm enjoying it, it gives me peace in my mind, which sometimes that's the truth, right? I'm going to hire that out because my time is more valuable than that. I can produce more income or revenue in my time than I am putting out. So you start really kind of doing that. And so you've got to get your mind right first. And then, well, there's actually two ways to tackle this. And then just start offloading. And offloading isn't as easy as it sounds. There's, like I said, I've built systems and processes. And what I realize is that most people really just suck at offloading work. And so I'm good at it now. And so we've developed programs and systems and ways to help business owners offload things. I changed the EHR, the earned hourly rate. It really functions around what I enjoy doing. If something gives me energy, then I'm going to do it anyway, because I'm like, that's a positive in my personal bank.
100%.
Podcasting gives me energy. I absolutely have a blast doing it. Now, some of it's been an amazing return. Some of it's just giving back, and that gives me energy, and I'm 100% ready to roll with that.
Man, I love the way you describe that EHR and looking at that. And I think I, like many people, have read that in books. But honestly, when you just said that, and I've done a version of that, but when you just said that, that really made so much sense to me. And I think it would probably make a lot of sense to the listeners that are hearing this now. A lot of them, and I know because I've coached a ton of them, a lot of them are going to say, yeah, but when I've hired people to delegate, it's the wrong person. They're not a core value fit. They're lazy. They're this, they're that. And by the way, most of those people will tell you that they're not victims, but whatever. That's it.
Right.
I digress. What do you tell those people? Like, how have you been able to, and again, you don't have to tell us the special sauce. I mean, don't go into super detail, but how have you been able to identify and scale what has been so difficult for others to do? It's hard for people to hire on site, let alone out of the Philippines or, Bangladesh, right? So what do you attribute that to? I know you've alluded to systems, but can you maybe dive in on that just a little?
I'm super tenacious when it comes to figuring things out. Like I used to identify as a problem solver. I'm a doer. Like if something needs to be done, I just do it myself. What I learned, and I had to go through this the hard way with a coach saying, stop doing, do not do that. Here's a task. Like literally Nathan, he's like, here's a task. Don't do it. Find the who, not the how.
Yeah.
And it was so hard. And it took so much of him just pounding that into my brain. The who, not the how, the who, not the how, the new who, not the how. Mm-hmm. So then I kind of switched my mindset from I'm going to do it and learn it to I'm going to take it on and offload it. And the first thing, Jason, is most business owners are exactly what you just said. No one can do it as good as me. And I hire people and they don't do it right. Here's why. People are not in your head. And you have to give them a way to understand exactly what you want. That takes upfront work. So for us, what we've developed is, one, I tell them exactly how to offload. Anything that can be done off location is usually can be talked about or shown on a computer. So I'm like, hey, next time you run that report, think of it as the last time you ever have to run the report, and do it with the absolute most excellent. And then open up your screen, turn on Loom, and talk through every single step. Okay, first I open this app, show them how to open that. And then I do this. I click on this right here. And then I go right here, walk through every single step. And then guess what? And do it with excellence. And if you mess up, say, oh, I messed up. I forgot a step. Go back and do it. And it might take you twice as long because you're explaining as you go. It'll take you twice as long. Maybe it takes you 30 minutes instead of 15 minutes. Well, guess what? You've now just created a template for an SOP. Now, if we get somebody to write an SOP that has screenshots in every single step with arrows and descriptors, and we attach this video, anybody in the world who has this, a certain skill set could come in on their computer and absolutely duplicate what you do because the SOP was written so well. That's how we execute. So then we take that, our team goes in, they create the most elegant, intriguing, like step-by-step SOPs, and then they execute. And they send whatever it is back, the work product, and they're like, ooh, something's not right. Okay. Another 15, 20 minutes, like what happened? Okay, screenshot. I think you did this instead of this. So it's another 15, 20 minutes. And then the next week, there's just a tiny, I'd love this just 3 hours earlier so I can. And this happens to me all the time. Like I'm doing payroll. I need this 3 hours earlier. And so then, 3 weeks have gone by. You spent a little more time than you normally would, but you never have to touch it again. Now you've just leveraged yourself how many hours in the next 5 years. And so we have because I had to figure this all out myself, we created little learning, and my Google business page should be updated 3 times a week, like a social media platform. When people come on with us, we're like, is that happening? What's the answer? No. Okay, well, Google's the most powerful SEO engine in the world. Do you not want your business to be like totally dialed on there? Okay, we're going to do that. Here's the SOP. Give us the details we need. We're off to the races. And so what we've done is over time created these systems and processes where companies can come in and just plug into them. But the hardest part is opening your mind and being okay and learning that someone else can probably do it just as good as you. They're going to do it more consistently than you. And here's what I've learned. I love doing everything. I was the master of a lot. I could do a lot, but master of none, whatever it was. I like to learn everything.
Master of done. Yeah.
Yes. So what I learned is that over time, my VA staff would come back to me. It's like, hey, I did a little research and you could get twice the results if we just tweaked this one thing.
Yeah.
I would have never came up with that. So I learned that the work actually starts getting better than I would have ever done because they're really focused in. And the way that we operate is our team doesn't get, when someone signs on with us, they don't get a VA, they get our entire team of VAs. So they get specialists in social media, they get specialists in podcast editing, audio editing, video editing, content creation, blog writing, all that all in the package. So they're not searching for a unicorn, which is what business owners do. They hire a coach and they're like, you need a few more hours and I need someone to post social media. I mean, like I'm sorry if anybody's doing that, hurts their feeling, but that is a stupid ass idea. Because again, you want people working inside of their working genius to get the most out of them, the most value out of them that you can and make them the happiest. Yeah, it's just a process, man. And it's taken time and a lot of energy, and now it's a machine. And, I have this machine working for me where I can record 4 podcasts a week and my job is done as soon as I'm done recording. And that's a really amazing thing.
Yeah. As a podcaster, I can tell you that's an amazing thing. The editing process at this point for me is not that easy. Right.
Right.
And I will add that in our businesses that have been very successful, at their best, I was like a counselor and a janitor.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like when my gyms or when my gym or the other business was running as well as it could possibly run, it wasn't that I was doing the most or I was figuring it out or I had already done that work. I mean, I'll never forget years ago, Doug Larson from Barbell Shrugged we were at a summit with him and he told me, he was like, if you can solve the same problem every single day, good for you, you're self-employed. But if you can solve that same problem perfectly one time, take a little extra work and then systemize it, now you're an entrepreneur. And that has stuck with me forever. I love to use the idea of like, if you want to do oil changes all day and see how many you can do, maybe at mastery level, you can do 15, 20 oil changes a day. Or, you can, set it up and build and train a team to do those oil changes for you and become an entrepreneur.
Right. And then the next step that I'm so passionate about is get that dialed in your own life.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we are so good at designing our lives or designing our businesses to be efficient and to make the most revenue and to create the best relationships. And then we come home and we throw it all in the shitter. We're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to come home. I'm beat. I'm just going to sit down. I'm going to take some me time. I'm going to sit on my phone and stare into it. And I'm being judgmental, but I mean, reality is almost everybody does this. And I just got to this point where I learned that I was that guy for so many years. My marriage was in jeopardy when I owned a business and I closed it in 2009 simply because I was working as a teacher and I owned this business. It was successful. I had like 7 full-time employees and I wouldn't get home until 9, 10 o'clock at night. I'd leave at 4 a.m. and I had 2 little boys I did not know. Because I was this guy that was just gonna get it done. I'm gonna get it done. And that was the beginning of this journey. Like, wait a minute, there's more to life than this. I actually shut that thing down. I actually had a buyer who backed out at the very last minute. So I was stuck with over $250,000 in inventory after announcing that I was leaving this thing. So I just I'm leaving. Didn't file bankruptcy. I paid it all off. My wife said it was above $300,000. And I did that simply to get my life back so I knew my kids. And so since then, it's been a journey of how can I be an entrepreneur and have a life by design? And so now that I've kind of gotten this dialed in and I am the master of my time, I say, you either command your day or your day will command you. And I let the day command me. Every single thing that came my way would dictate what I was doing. And so this whole methodology of designing your day, designing your week, designing your month, and designing your life is a way to be ultimately successful, not only in business, but in your personal life. It's taken just a buttload of work, but it's been so worth it. And really why I started the Brotherhood of Fatherhood is really to help people understand that this is a possibility. You can be a freaking amazing husband. You can be an amazing father. And you can be an amazing leader in your community and you can be an amazing business owner and not sacrifice things. I once was at a conference and this is when the light really, I'd already kind of given up on that business and went into debt and was kind of trying to redesign my life. But the gal said, I want you to think about how you think about life and about your dreams, what you want to do. She's like, okay, how long have you been saying that? Instead of focusing on what you want to do it now. It's not because if you think it's on the horizon, it will always be on the horizon. It will always be just out of touch. And at that moment, I'm like, wow, my dreams for living in the financial world I want to live in have always been out here. And what do we do when we see it out here? We're always away from it. We're not in it. I decided to step in it, be in it every single day. And every single day, I want to lay my head down and say, if I die tonight, it's a good day to die. And that was like a massive change in my mindset. And then I'm just fired up to help other people kind of get that same mindset.
Man, I love that so much. So let's zoom in again. Talk me through how you have done that. So what does a day look like? What does a week look like? I don't need all the detail, but like what is the priorities that you set your days and weeks up as?
Oh, this is good because I have I stole it from someone else, a value ladder. So the very top and down. And so I know where things fall in my value ladder. And I'm a huge believer in core values in your business. You and I talked about that on my podcast, and we aligned very much there. But I have my value ladder. And so I start my day in the order of things that are the value. The highest things come first and whittle down. But what that means for me is it means I have a morning routine that is dialed. It's taken me years to get dialed in, where by 10 a.m. every morning, usually 9 a.m. every morning, I could stop and be happy. Like I would literally be like, I've fulfilled what I needed to fulfill for the day. And so that includes my workout. It includes my time, my gratitude time, which is like ridiculously important for me. My personal reflection time, my time with my wife, touch points with my kids that are meaningful, and a little bit of work. Guess what it doesn't include? It doesn't include stuff like social media and emails, because those are just a distractor from my values. So I've set up a system in the morning, and I don't get up super early. I get up at 5:55, but I set up a system in the morning where I'm going to prioritize those things and get them done. It's never a rush. It's always very enjoyable. And then the rest of the day is gravy, right? I can go in my office, get some work done, attack everything. But then there's just simple things. And I really want to challenge people to do this. When you transition from work, do an actual physical transition. So if you got to drive home, literally on your way home, as soon as you drive in, don't sit in your car forever. That may be part of your transition, but don't just walk into the house, because you walk in the house, you might have decision fatigue from your work all day. If you haven't transitioned, you're going to say, I'm tired of making decisions. I don't want to talk right now. I just want a beer and sit down, or I just want to watch TV. I just want to read, whatever the case is. That is not who you need to be for your wife or your kids or your spouse or your loved ones. You need to be 100% attentive. So have some physical transition. For me, I have in my checklist before I walk out of my office every day, I have what can I do right now, or how can I best serve my family right now? I read it out loud, I check it, and I'm like, I'm done. It's like a physical motion. I'm done. And I walk out, and my head has now transitioned from work is done. It's all family right now. So have some physical transition. I read some guy that had a tree that he would just touch a branch, and that meant I'm leaving everything here. I'm leaving it rooted outside, and I'm going in my house, and I'm going to serve my family. You do not need to rest when you get home. You need to have your energy in the right place. You need to, and so you'll get a lot of energy from serving and listening and being present. And so I have these transitions between everything I do. They're physical, they're loud, they're vocal, but it's, I think, incredibly important. Breathing is a huge part of that. Box breathing is a great way to transition from one thing to another. 4 in, 4 hold, 4 exhale, 4 hold, 4 in. It actually physically or psychologically or biochemistry wise helps you transition. So all of those things are things that I do tactically to make sure that I'm the best person for whoever I'm in front of at that moment.
What were you like when you were a kid?
Reactional, very reactional, independent, but didn't know how to be independent as a skater. And skaters were hated. I was good at skating. I had my crew. I got in fights. I was bullied really bad. I was pretty short. 5th grade, I was sick and tired of being bullied. A kid knocked me off my saxophone case. I was sitting on it. This is the first time in my life that I realized that I had power. Shorter than him. I stood up, and every time up to that moment that I'd punched somebody, I had literally had like a physical, psychological break where I'd lose all the power and ended up like a little wussy slap, or just kind of like a bear. Like I wasn't committed. I stood up and I punched that kid so hard in the face. He was down on his knees, and I just stepped back and just kicked him in the balls as hard as I could. And he was out. And the next day, I'll never forget this. The next day he walked up to me, he had a black eye. He walked up to me and said, dude, I've been a jerk.
Wow.
Then he was nice to me from then on. And I was like, like, I think I personally had a target on my head because I was weak. I never really stood my ground. Middle school comes along. I'm a skater. I'm good at it. We had at that time skaters, and then we had names for these guys, but just country kids. And they would come and they would rip my clothes. And I finally just like, I'm done. And I just scrap it out with those kids. And I was in the office all the time, and I never felt bad about it because I was just standing my ground. Just look back, and I was a victim. As a victim to teachers, they didn't like me because I was a skater. I was pretty smart, but I didn't care. I remember I quit wrestling. I was undefeated in 8th grade. I was undefeated. I was kicking ass. I'm short. I'm a little wider. I'm short, And so I was kind of like the perfect wrestling build. And I had math class with my wrestling teacher. And I said, hey, man, I'm quitting. And this is like towards the end of the season. We're going to the final stuff. And he was livid. And he looked me in the face. He pulled me into his side room and kind of pushed me up against the wall. And he said, you're such a pussy skater faggot. And he just went on. And I let that be a victim I just addressed this a few years in my life. I'm like, I was really victimized by that. I chose to be a victim. So I've been independent, but I've always kind of had this thing. But, in the last few years, I've learned that that's what makes me who I am. Like, I don't have to beat to everyone else's drum. Like, if I love rucking and no one else wants to do it with me, that's their problem. I'm going to do it. I'm going to love it. It gets me in the right headspace. I'm going to go all in. I'm going to tell everybody about it because it's a fabulous thing to do. And that's okay. I don't care. So I was a little bit of a victim. I had a great, my parents were amazing. They loved they loved us. They provided for us amazingly. My biggest issue was just social stuff. And it just took me a long time to be okay with being who I was.
Today's show is brought to you by High Level CRM. High Level is an all-in-one platform designed to help entrepreneurs grow their businesses without the need for multiple softwares or an IT team. Not only does their easy-to-use software allow you to track and manage your leads throughout each phase of the relationship, but it also allows you to build funnels, track stats, and more. Guys, I sat down and added up the cost of software I was able to replace with just one app, and it was over $1,000 per month. Because this is an all-in-one application, I also save a ton of headaches connecting apps and building automations, and the team at Go High Level does a great job of getting you started quickly and easily when you sign on. I cannot more highly recommend these guys. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners get a free 14-day trial of High Level CRM for themselves. Click the link in our show notes to support the show and get started on your free 14-day trial today. I'm super excited that today's show is brought to you by the Global School of Entrepreneurship. Most practicing entrepreneurs cannot take 2 years away from their growing business to attend a full-time campus-based program or spend every weekend away from family and business for a couple of years. Finally, there's an accredited program specifically designed for you to work on and grow your business while completing your MBA. The GSE MBA complements the needs and schedules of someone actively engaged in an entrepreneurial venture while still covering the accredited curriculum expected from any MBA program. The Global School of Entrepreneurship offers a unique offering called the Mastermind to MBA program. It consists of 10 students who work together in a forum-style cohort and meet every other week for a year. The GSE MBA helps you develop skills in critical thinking and strategic planning. Students also develop competencies in leadership, decision-making, and communication with both employees as well as the important stakeholders in your business. You will be exposed to world-class academics and fascinating guest lecturers. You'll work on your business while working in your business. Students are guided by real-world entrepreneurs with decades of experience starting and scaling businesses just like yours. Best of all, I'm beyond proud to announce that the Global School of Entrepreneurship has agreed to offer one Spear and Clover listener a scholarship to join an upcoming Mastermind to MBA cohort. They are looking for someone just like you to bring a unique perspective to the program, and they are accepting applications right now. To learn more and to apply, simply go to www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Don't miss this opportunity to level yourself up and surround yourself with other like-minded entrepreneurs just like you. Once again, to apply for the GSE MBA Spear and Clover Scholarship, simply visit www.gse.mba/spear. That's www.gse.mba/spear. Today's show is brought to you by Scaling with Media. I mean, literally, like if it weren't for the folks at Scaling with Media, you would not be getting this. Scaling with Media is a truly revolutionary company for any entrepreneur who wants to reach a larger audience without taking on the years of experience necessary to master the required skills. These guys do it all. From helping you develop your creative plan to editing, sourcing content, copywriting, ads management, and way more. Whether you're looking to launch a YouTube channel or podcast, or you just want to scale your business out to more eyeballs, these guys are the absolute best one-stop shop. But that's not all. Right now, Spear and Clover listeners who sign up for their brand launch package will receive a free, that's right, free professional grade studio kit that I'm actually recording right now on. The studio kit includes a professional microphone, stand, lighting, and headphones, and is worth well over $500. Take action now by going to scalingwithmedia.com/spear and claim your free studio kit. Again, that's scalingwithmedia.com/spear, scalingwithmedia.com/spear. Now back to the show. I want to, if you don't mind, go a little bit deeper. It sounds like you had some bullying stuff, you had some identity stuff, and certainly sounds like at least some of the adults in your life weren't maybe the best influence. What gave you the leverage to start to change? And I understand the standing your ground thing, but were there books you were reading? Were there mentors that you, or were there role models that you looked to? Or was this 100% kind of inside of you, kind of just making a decision to draw a line in the sand?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't remember anybody really prodding me or helping me along. My dad was always super supportive. So I think basically inside I knew that if I were doing something to stand up for myself, I wasn't going to get in trouble. As long as my focus was right, because they would have to come to the school, talk to the vice principal. And I just remember it not being a big deal. Like, I'm like, hey, look, I did what I had to do to survive right now. It was either engage or get all my clothes ripped up and happen every single day. No one else was going to do anything about it. So I had that backing from my parents. Like, if you do what's best for you, we're going to be behind you. Another big deal was my dad. Skateboarding was kind of this pariah thing. And instead of fighting it, he's like, hey, I'm tired of you going everywhere to go skate. What if we build a half pipe in our backyard? And I'm like, are you kidding me? And we spent a summer, hand building the best half pipe we could. And,
wow.
And so for me, that spoke into me. Like, my dad believes in me. He cares about me. He's interested in what I'm interested in, even if he doesn't do it or hang out with me. He cares so much that he's going to support me. And I look back and I'm like, my friends were coming there instead of me running away, going skating in the night in the city. They were coming to our house and hanging out. It was genius, right? I mean, it was just, and taking a lot of the way he raised me and have implemented that in my boys' lives. And I still go skating with them. Just so much support that who I was. I think it just kind of switched. And then I had a few teachers who really were the complete opposite of some of my other experiences. And we're just like, hey, you're smart. You have something to say, and we believe in you. And, just some of those adults doing that made such a huge difference, because I had a lot of friends. I had a lot of enemies, but I had a lot of friends, and I never felt like I was missing in those areas in my life. I think it was parental roles, both ends of the sword. And then in high school, I really found that standing up for myself and being strategic in it was really important. I was out running, training for soccer with a buddy of mine, and we were in incredible shape. And it was summer. It was like 90 some degrees outside, and we're running. And so we're both like, pull our shirts off. We are going through a crosswalk. It was a walk, and this truck, let's say redneck truck with a bunch of guys sitting in the back of it, almost ran us over. Like, they came right, and it was on purpose. I've been feisty. So we're running, and they're screaming at us and making all sorts of comments. And so I just slap my butt and keep running. And the next thing I know, my friend goes, he's like, you better start sprinting now. And I'm like, what the heck? Next thing I know, I'm on the ground, and I have 4 guys over me, kicking me. One of the guys had a cast, and he came behind me and knocked me out, hit me in the head and knocked me out. I fell on a main street of our town, people driving by, and I wake up and no one's helping me. I'm getting the crap beat out of me. Anyway, I walk into the local store and nobody will help me. I've got blood. My eyes probably about this big. They had to take me to the hospital. But you know, what happened was people rallied. I mean, I had people driving around town, carloads of men looking for these guys. I mean, and it was really quite this thing like, man, people have got my back. People are good. There's bad people out there and there's good people out there. And you just have to surround yourself with people who are going to support you and be there for you. And that just had a really big impact on my life. For one, don't be a smart ass. Like, that's not going to serve you, but also having the right people in your circle. And that was another reason the Brotherhood of Fatherhood came up. I kind of looked at myself. I'm like, I relocated. I haven't built this circle around me. I haven't found a circle I belong in. Guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to create one. And that's really where that came up with me and my buddy Josh. Is like, hey, let's create our own group. I just think everybody needs to belong in something bigger than themselves and something that is a force when a force is needed.
You know, it's funny, as I'm listening to you talk and as I've had these kinds of conversations, which, you know, a lot of these will be podcasts, but the reason this podcast exists because I was having these conversations with people like both of us for years already. And I continue to do so that are unrecorded, right? And it seems to me like the people that are the most convicted in their core values, in what they'll stand up for, in what they'll stand up and get up off the saxophone case and punch somebody in the face over. It seems like the people that get there are coming from one of two places. One is like this position of like, I know what my virtue is. I've always come from a place of strength. I've worked super hard to be the best or to know that this is for sure true. So like almost like the top tier, like the Jocko Willinks, if you will. And then there's the other one where it's like, well, nobody was there to show me otherwise. And I had been beaten up about it so much that I almost like the bottom side of it, not to put you in that role, but where it's like, well, there's nothing left and I'm going to fight for this much. Like this much I know is true and I'm going to stand up and fight for it. And as you're talking, there's so many little incidents there of like, all right, dude, I'm short. All right, dude, I do this sport that you think is whatever you think it is. And guess what, man? You can't take anything else from me because I'm still going to do it. And if you want to get in my face and in my space, then you're going to beat me up, but I'm going to fight you while you do, or whatever the case might be. And I admire that so much, not just in you, but also in the other folks that I've talked to like that. Because I think for some people, and maybe those people are in the band in between the two groups I just described, you're sort of halfway believing in what you want, or you're halfway giving up. And I think it's a little bit easier to see yourself as a victim in those cases. But it's just so inspiring to hear your story. I certainly identify more with your story than the Jocko Willinks. I always say Jocko to me seems like he was born with a K-bar in his mouth, like ready to kick down doors. And I've never felt that way, you know, so that's super interesting. At what point did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur? And what does that mean to you?
You know, it's such a good question because I've interviewed so many people as well. And they're like, oh, I never thought I'd be an entrepreneur. Some people knew it from the minute they were born. I always went out and made my own money. I just always did. Wash cars, detailed cars, mowed lawns. You know, I was that kid. But I got my master's degree in education. And I kind of just fell into you go to school, you do the thing, you get a career. So I was teaching. But really what happened for those 13 years I was teaching, the first 5 years, I just would talk to my dad all the time. I'm like, I either need to be an administrator. There's got to be something more. It was almost too easy. And I hate saying that. I related really well with the kids. I had a blast. I had horrible teachers. So I was like anti that. I wanted to be very engaging and fun. I had a whole skate club. I'd take kids to the skate park. I mean, I was that guy, right? I was so invested. And it was 5 or 6 years of being able to kind of do my own thing because the education at that time in Oregon was like, you know, hey, here's the big points you need to teach, go for it. And I was able to create this curriculum. It was intriguing and engaging. We'd go on trips and it was amazing. And what happened was the state came in and started saying, oh no, you have to teach this precise thing. And this is the schedule. And you have to have this testing here. And that took away my autonomy. That took away my creativity. And that's when I realized I was an entrepreneur. I was being entrepreneurial in the classroom. So what happened, I mean, I was getting grants and buying computers and building all new programs. I built a video yearbook project, which is a massive hit in our school. I taught the kids how to edit and we produced this amazing product. And I got all these free computers from grants. And then I was taking kids to the Oregon coast and we were doing week-long trips. And then I went to the middle school and started doing these. Each of my fundraisers bringing $10,000 to $13,000. And I was buying teachers equipment. And as soon as that was stifled by bureaucracy and the state and the local, and I just started to fight. I'm like, you can't take this away. We can't have this entitlement thing. Everybody gets something for just breathing. It was really what it came down to.
Mm-hmm.
And you're taking away all my creativity for education. It's when I realized, like, I'm a creator. I am not a follower. And there's nothing wrong with education. And I do believe that there's people who are rightfully made to fill those roles, those this is what you do and how you do it roles. I am not one of those. So I opened a bike shop, and that was the real, always working for someone else. Started doing that in summer and started making mad money in the summer. And I'm like, well, dang, I'm just going to kind of systemize this and build it out. And that thing grew to crazy. That was the business that I shut down 5 years into it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really when I realized this is what drives me. And that was in early 30s. This is what like gets my engine going, like creating jobs, creating opportunities for people, giving people value, adding value to the community. And so that's really when it clicked that I'm going to be restless in my mind until I am doing something entrepreneurial. And so quite honestly, when I shut that bike shop down to kind of gain my life back, I made the wrong choice. I really should have quit teaching and delved into the bike shop. But I think everything's done for a reason, because what happened? My identity was in the business. I was a business owner. And when I shut that down, I took 2 years of massive depression. Yeah, I did it to spend time with my family. I didn't know how to spend time with my family. I had to teach myself how to spend time with my kids. I had to teach myself to enjoy sitting there with them playing Legos. Mm-hmm. That's not an easy thing to do. So I wouldn't change any of it, but it was really those 2 years where it's like, I am not fired up unless I am creating and the master of my own future. And so I fell into another opportunity where I doubled my income from teaching like it's 6 months, and I retired from teaching. I'm like, I'm out. They called me. I literally had teachers coming up to me, literally on my last day, looking me so close. And they're like, you are an absolute idiot. You're walking away from a check that you know is going to come for the rest of life. You're giving up all this stuff. And I just like, hey man, in 6 months, if I can double what you're making in 6 months, I think I'm going to be fine. And it was tough. But at that point I had this fight, right? I'm like, I'm not. That's where wheels off. I'm ready to roll. I just kept doing thing after thing. And it's been a journey since.
Yeah. Once you take a bite of that forbidden fruit, it's pretty hard to go back. Once you've taken that red pill or whatever, however you want to say it.
Right.
You know, after we had a business that didn't fail in the first year, I was like, oh, I can just do that? Like, okay, all right. I didn't realize you could just... I'll never forget. I just moved to Chicago. This is before I owned a business. I was like flipping bikes and MacBooks on Craigslist. I'm kind of envious of the bike shop. We'll talk bikes sometime.
Yeah,
and
will.
Skating, by the way. I was a skater as well.
Awesome.
But I remember looking down Broadway in Chicago, which is like a kind of a hip area where there's all these little clothing stores and cool bars and cool restaurants. And I was like, somebody owns the business behind every one of these doors. And there was hundreds of these doors. And I remember thinking very clearly, I just gotten out of the military. I was very capable and very confident in like my ability to solve problems and work hard. I was like, there is no way that the people behind all these doors are going to work harder than me. They're smarter than me. They're better than me in any way. And that was like the confidence to just like, all right, well, fuck it. Let's go. Last question about kind of the you stuff is, clearly between the VAs for gyms, between Brotherhood of Fatherhood, you've laid the groundwork for us as the listener to kind of see what you're trying to do. But if you had to put it to words, what is the impact that you want to make on the world when it's all said and done?
Yeah, that's kind of twofold. For business owners, I literally just want to solve problems. I know that sounds kind of cliche, but literally when we kind of look at our value, my business partner and I were like, if we're solving somebody's problem, we're in really good shape, especially gym owners, because we went through the grind as gym owners, did everything. And gym owners are struggling. They're kind of trying, there's a lot of people doing well and there's a lot of people barely making. And so for us, if I can help people have more time, so that's the VA side. If I can help them have more time and command their own day, and then on the other side, for men, if I can help men step up and lead their family and be the example and step out of the monotony and the ease of some of the things that they're trapped in, then I'm doing really well. Then I've left my mark on the world. And look, this is probably going to piss a few people off, and that's fine. But if I can help men put away their phone and date their wife, Like if I can help men realize it is freaking 100% you, everything you are and do, you took an oath to that woman. At one point, you worked your ass off to get laid. You worked your ass off to make her happy. You worked your ass off to sell yourself to her. What happened to you? It's like you bought it. You bought your ticket and now it should just be given to you. Bullshit. You got to go and do the work every single day. So any man who's a victim to his wife's nagging, who's a victim to his wife not doing the dishes, who's a victim to his wife not giving a care in the world about their marriage or their kids, I'm still saying it's all on you. Serve, 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 serve. Eventually, either she's going to go away and it's just not meant to be because she hasn't grown, or she's going to be the best woman in the world. But if you see her as the way you saw her when you were dating and you treat her as the way you treated her when you were dating, I guarantee you she's going to be that woman that you've always dreamed of. So I'm very passionate about that. And then I'm passionate about the way you raise kids. How do you raise amazing kids who are going to have phenomenal marriages and relationships? Is you have a phenomenal marriage and relationship and you model to them what really matters. You model to them that your attention to them is something special. Hard work and failure are a part of life, and overcoming it is the spice. I mean, you can't just give yourself time. You've got to learn how to use that time. And I would love to shorten that learning curve that I went through for other men and really realize, like, look, you can't just chase the dollar to chase the dollar, because when you hit 60 or 70, have you lived life? And you really should be living that life with your wife that you dream of. And that falls 100% on you. It means making everything I still fight my wife for dates. I still fight her for them. I'm like, we have to go on a date because she's so practical. Well, the kids are busy. I don't care. And so I'm like, date your wife, pursue her like you did when you were dating. Like every lay should be an earned lay, and then give up on easy stuff. Some of the easiest things in the world are the dopamine hits you get from social media, other acceptance you get from likes and comments. The other easy stuff is porn. Like if you get rid of the easy button, you do the extra things to have the real thing, right? And so I'm all about this personal discipline, do hard stuff every single day, never give up on hard stuff, every day 1% better. I know that's cliche too, but it's just so incredibly true. Because some days we feel like we're running through mud and we're getting nowhere. All that matters is you've gotten just an inch further.
Man, I love the way you think about this stuff. This is excellent. There's 2 questions that I ask everybody that comes on the show, and I'm going to ask you those 2 questions now. Are you ready?
Yep.
All right. Question number 1. If you had access to unlimited capital to profitably grow your business, what steps would you take?
I'd hire people smarter than me. I wouldn't even how am I going to do ads? How am I going to scale? None of it. I would put the right people who knew how to do it. It's the who, not how.
Okay. Great answer. Question number 2. If you had to give up all of the businesses you are currently involved in or have been involved in the past and start something totally new that you've never done before, what do you think that might be?
That's a very hard one. I'm like you, Jason. I drive down the street and I see all of these businesses. How do people make money doing that? There's a bird store or bird feed store. How does somebody make a living selling bird feed?
Yeah.
And so
the quilting shop or whatever. Yeah, I think the same thing. I'm like, how does this place exist? Go ahead.
So, I think really what I would do is I would find somebody that I admire who has the lifestyle that I want. And I would go step. And so a lot of that is in sales and headhunting and sales. And it would have to be something that I could scale. So I don't know that I have a real answer because this is something I've really been thinking about. My son is turning 18. He is giving up college. He doesn't want to go to college. About 3 months ago, he said, Dad, you have opportunities coming at you all the time. You're turning things down. How many income things do you have going on right now? And I said, well, about 3 places I get income. He's like, how do I do that? And I said, a lot of work, a lot of dedication, and a lot of connections. And he said, well, how do I do that? I don't know. I'm sitting there scratching my head. And what we came up with when he decided he didn't want to go to college, it's you are going to sit in my office for a year if you want. You're going to do an internship. You're going to be on every meeting I'm going to be on. You're going to be on every connection call, every marketing thing. You're going to learn the inside and outs of this business. So I've been thinking about this a lot because by the end of a year, this kid could have a kick-ass business. And so I've been thinking about that a lot, but I always revert back to the things I know. Yeah, I wish I could tell you, Jason. I don't know. The answer is I would just get at it.
Yeah. And frankly, the thing I've noticed is the people that are the most devoted and focused on the thing they're doing usually either don't have an answer to that question, or it's like, I don't know, or I guess I'd run a surf shop on the beach in Hawaii. Like, or it's like,
well, that's
just like a bum. Yeah, it's just like a bum idea. 2 points. One, I don't know if you've ever considered this, but do you realize that you are both rich dad and poor dad as an example for your children?
Oh, that's such a cool, I love that.
I've never met anybody that I could say that about, but you were because his dad was like a professor, right?
Yeah.
At least in the book. And then
100%.
The other dad was the entrepreneur. You're both rich dad and poor dad. That's super cool.
Made that transition in that mindset, like 180 degrees for sure. Yeah.
And number 2 is start a school, dude. Like you should rethink education. I think you'd be really good at that.
Oh, we could go.
I know there's a can of worms there. I'm sure. I have, by the way, if you ever, in apropos of nothing, if you ever did want to do something like that, I know people. I've had multiple entrepreneur friends say that they want to invest time and effort into schooling.
So that's a really good point. I actually have thought of that. I actually have thought like, okay, we got all these people moving to homeschooling and we have these in-between things. And I've known people that have quit and done their own thing. I thought I could do that. I could absolutely do that because kids are we missing the mark. I think my son's chance, because he doesn't want to be a lawyer or a doctor or, these things that require a degree. If you have something that requires a degree, by all means, go ahead. My wife has a doctorate degree. I have a master's degree. We're not anti-education, but he's like, well, kids are telling me, it's stupid not to go to school and I should just take a gap year. I'm like, hey, look, in 4 years, you're going to be 4 years ahead of it. Like, don't even second.
Yeah, unless
you're probably going to be earning. You'll be earning 10K a month by then. I believe it without a doubt in my mind that you're going to be there in 2-3 years. Easy. He's like, oh, I'm like, so they can make fun of you as much as you want. But at that point, you're going to be living the life they wish they had, brother. And he's like, oh, okay. So,
well, Scott, this has been an unbelievable conversation. I love the way you look at the world. I love the businesses you're involved in. I hope that we collaborate in the future. One more time for everybody listening, where can they find you and your businesses if they want to contact you? Because I'm certain that they will.
vasforgyms.com. A lot of people tell me there's not much there. Basically, it's just a bunch of links to schedule a call. Sure. You can reach out to me on Insta or Facebook, Scott Rammage, and it's 2 M's. Kids called me Damage Rammage when I was young, and I kind of like that. But you can reach out to me, and I'll give you the direct path to finding more out about that. For Brotherhood of Fatherhood, same. But you can also go get in the Brotherhood of Fatherhood group on Facebook. It's about 4,000 men in there. I lose about as many as I gain, which is really great because I'm losing losers. Because I kind of tend to make them mad if they, don't like something or they feel entitled about something. It's time to call you out. So that's the way to do that. And then I do have to plug, I have an event in September that's in Montana. It's called The Big Event Montana, where we're going to be rucking, learning tactical shooting a lot of ammo flying with kick-ass instructors. We're going to be doing some Brazilian jiu-jitsu. If you know who Robb Wolf is, he's going to be there talking business.
Angelo Cisco, right?
Possibly Angelo's still nailing that one down. Nice. But I mean, Robb, by the way, his Element product, I think is one of the fastest growing drinks in the world. It's going crazy. So they're our mainline sponsor. Check that out. brotherhoodfatherhood.com/events, but you can also find it on all my other places. So that's my plug.
Scott, it's been a great conversation, man. It's awesome. I'm glad we got to know each other.
Me too.
See you again soon, brother.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Thank you guys so much for watching or listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to show us some love by liking, rating, and subscribing so we can keep making more and better content. If you'd like to support the show and get a great additional content like exclusive shows and even live group masterminds, please head over to patreon.com/spearandclover to become a member of the tribe. If you're interested in learning more about how we help entrepreneurs, visit spearandclover.com or message us on any of our platforms. Thanks again, and we'll see you soon.